History never asked for permission to make sense. This list is full of those moments. From beauty pageants that make all the wrong headlines to medicine found in very creepy places, this is going to be a fun one. You ready? Alright, let's do this. I'm Mike with List 25, and these are 25 facts that feel like fiction. 25. There used to be a job just for reading in cigar factories. Before radios and recorded music became common in workplaces, cigar factories in Cuba kept their workers engaged in a different way. They hired lectors, who stood on platforms and read aloud while workers rolled cigars. The job entertained, helped pass the time, shared news, and gave structure to long, repetitive days. But over time, these lecturers became more than just a distraction. Since the workers themselves paid for the entertainment and chose what was being read, the readings often reflected their interests, sometimes bringing politics and labor issues into the factory. When owners stepped in and tried to stop the readings, workers often pushed back. In some cases, the disagreement spilled into walkouts. Eventually, radios and recorded sound took over. The readers were no longer needed, and the job gradually disappeared. 24. Britain used a fictional dead officer to win an invasion. One of World War II's strangest plans of deception began with a person who never existed at all. British intelligence invented a fictional officer named Major William Martin, then used the body of a deceased civilian to give that identity physical weight. The body was dressed in uniform, stocked with personal letters and official papers, and released near the Spanish coast, where information had a habit of finding its way to German intelligence. German intelligence accepted the material as genuine and adjusted its defenses. Troops and resources were shifted toward Greece, while Sicily was left less protected than it might have been. When Allied forces landed there in 1943, resistance was lighter, and Operation Mincemeat, yes, that was its actual name, had done its job. 23. One UK witch was so feared, her opinion alone could ruin a career. Thomasine Blight was a famous hedge witch and healer in 19th century Cornwall. Hedge witches operated on the edges of village life, both literally and socially, and dealt with the kind of problems others preferred not to touch. In short, when someone couldn't explain or run a bad luck or believed something unseen was at work, Blight often became part of the conversation. Whether she had powers or not was almost irrelevant. The belief that she did was enough to matter, and it became very real after a local cobbler refused to mend her shoes. Blight reportedly cursed him and said he would soon be out of work, and word of that curse spread quickly. Customers stopped going to the man because they didn't want to be associated with someone a feared hedge witch had marked. According to local accounts, he was eventually forced to leave town. 22. We're looking for new antibiotics in ancient human remains. As bacteria continue to get smarter than our current antibiotics, scientists are running out of easy answers. So in 2023, a research team led by Cesar de la Fuente at the University of Pennsylvania decided to try a very different approach. They started studying the DNA of ancient Neanderthals and Denisovans to look for any possible infection-fighting molecules that we may have lost over time. They found 6 promising peptides, which were then recreated in the lab and tested on mice. Some of the molecules ended up slowing infections, while others cleared bacteria from skin wounds when used in higher amounts. It's early research, but it shows that extinct humans may still have something useful to offer modern medicine. 21. Icelanders save baby puffins by throwing them off cliffs. A baby puffin is called a puffling, and every year, instead of following the moon out to sea like they're supposed to, they get turned around by our artificial lights and end up in towns, on roads, or behind buildings. When that happens, locals step in. They collect the birds, usually at night, keep them calm for a few hours, and then take them to a spot on a cliff where the ocean lies directly ahead. From there, the pufflings are released, sometimes with a bit of a toss so they can catch air. The whole thing is informal, community-run, and surprisingly wholesome, even if it does look like animal cruelty when you're seeing it for the first time. 20. Still in Iceland. Did you know they have an app to stop you from dating your own family members? Alright, when you say it like that, it sounds weird, but with a population of around 380,000 people, most Icelanders are distantly connected in some way. That has led to more than a few awkward moments over the years, and stories of couples discovering family ties after getting serious are common enough that people joke about it openly. So, to deal with the problem, Icelanders created the App of Icelanders. By tapping two phones together, the app checks a massive national genealogy database and warns users if they are closely related. The tool was built by students at the University of Iceland using the Icelandic, a detailed family record that goes back more than 1,200 years. The records are so thorough that Icelanders are often listed by first name rather than surname, simply because there aren't enough last names to go around. 19. We've found piles of human ashes in the Nevada desert. In August 2025, federal officials started investigating the discovery of piles of human ashes near the town of Searchlight in Nevada. The ashes were clustered close together along a dirt road, making the scene look more like an abandoned memorial site than a single burial. What makes the situation especially strange is that Nevada law doesn't bar people from scattering ashes on public land, but funeral homes are restricted in how they're allowed to do it. And so far, there's no indication one was involved here. That narrows the possibilities in a much more uncomfortable way. Authorities are still trying to figure out who put the ashes there and why. 18. Jumping spiders may actually dream. Yes, really. Researchers filming juvenile jumping spiders noticed their eyes moving back and forth under their translucent shells while they slept. At the same time, their legs twitched, curled inward, and then relaxed again. That detail matters. Spiders do not extend their legs with muscles. They rely on hydraulic pressure. When that pressure drops, the legs curl naturally, which is what happens when a spider is inactive rather than alert. So what you're left with is a spider that is clearly asleep, body relaxed, legs curling inward, while its eyes continue to move beneath the surface. I know, not exactly what you thought I'd be telling you about today, but adorable is as adorable does. 17. Angola once held a Miss Landmine beauty pageant. The prize was a limb. I know, horrid. The pageant was organized by Norwegian theater director Morten Travik in 2008, and the contestants were 10 Angolan women who had all lost limbs to landmines, a lasting legacy of the country's long civil war. Travik said that the pageant was meant to provoke conversation and draw attention to landmine survivors by placing them in the kind of space usually reserved for traditional ideas of beauty. The reaction to the pageant was immediate and terribly divided. Some people saw it as empowering, while others condemned it as a spectacle that crossed ethical lines. The contest ran for just 1 year, and the winner's prosthetic limb was ultimately described as a high-quality modern prosthesis. 16. Churchill's favorite spy faked tuberculosis to fool the Gestapo. Winston Churchill once described Countess Maria Skarbek as his favorite spy, a title he gave with care. When she got to London, she refused to wait for an assignment and demanded to be sent into occupied Europe. Using names like Christine Granville, she crossed borders, worked with resistance groups, and brought intelligence back to Britain, all while facing great personal danger. Her courage, however, caught up with her in 1941 when Hungarian police arrested her and handed her over to the Gestapo, the official secret police of Nazi Germany. Facing the real threat of execution, she came up with a plan that used a health problem she had struggled with for years. Before the war, she had damaged her lungs working above a car garage, breathing exhaust fumes for years. In prison, she used that damage. She bit her tongue until it bled, started coughing, and told her captors she had tuberculosis. When doctors saw the scarring on her x-ray, her story seemed true. The Germans had no interest in keeping a sick prisoner around, so they let her go. And within days, she was back doing intelligence work. 15. London gave birth to the Sublime Society of Beefsteaks. Founded in 1735 by John Rich of the Covent Garden Theatre, the society limited itself to just 24 members and never made exceptions. And by never, I mean the rule was never bent. Not even for the Prince of Wales, who later became George IV and had to wait his turn like everyone else. The society met regularly for dinners built almost entirely around beefsteaks, washed down with generous amounts of port and spirits. Singing, toasts, and rowdy camaraderie were part of the ritual. Some of its members included artists like William Hogarth and politicians like John Wilkes, who once wrote that he imagined his friends heading to the brothels of Covent Garden after dinner. The club moved locations several times after fires destroyed its early homes. While the society eventually waned in the 19th century, it was revived in the 20th, and it still meets in London today. Just waiting on my invite. 14. Yosemite had to shame toilet paper dumping on Instagram. The National Park Service has seen just about every form of litter imaginable, which is why its waste disposal guidelines are detailed and easy to find. Even so, Yosemite officials hit a breaking point in 2024 after repeatedly finding used toilet paper scattered around wilderness areas. In one case, rangers even came across a full roll left behind. Instead of keeping the frustration private, the park posted photos of the mess to Instagram and addressed the problem head on. The post explained that burying toilet paper does not solve anything. Erosion, weather, and animals bring it back to the surface. The solution, according to the park, was simple, but apparently necessary to spell out. Pack it in a sealable bag and take it with you. If you can carry it in, you can carry it out. 13. We've created soil that can water itself. Scientists have created a hydrogel that can be infused directly into the soil, allowing it to absorb water, hold onto it, and then release it gradually as plants need it. Fertilizer can even be delivered the same way, reducing runoff and waste. It works so well that in initial testing by the Cockerell School of Engineering's Walker Department of Mechanical Engineering, the plants grown in it did far better than those in untreated soil. Stem length increased by more than 100%, while water use dropped by roughly 40%. Farming already accounts for most global freshwater consumption, and in parts of the developing world, it can reach extreme levels. As water becomes harder to secure, changing the soil itself shifts agriculture towards something more stable. 12. Germany gave robots Sundays off for religious reasons. Germany has long enforced something called Sonntagsruhe, a rule rooted in Christian tradition that limits most work on Sundays. The law dates back to 1919 and was meant to protect rest, family time, and religious observance. Restaurants, gas stations, and pharmacies are allowed to operate, but most retail activity has to stop. Recently, however, that law collided with modern automation. A grocery chain called Tegut operates dozens of small, fully automated shops that function like walk-in vending machines. There are no staff inside, so in theory, no one's actually working. Even so, a German court ruled that some of these robotic stores must close on Sundays. The judgment applies in the state of Hesse, but not nationwide, meaning the same system is treated differently depending on location. In Bavaria, for example, the poor machines have to work all 7 days of the week. 11. Gen Z's drinking habits disrupted the stout beer market. Guinness spent decades being seen as a drink for older regulars and patient pub-goers. Then, Gen Z discovered it. The evolution started building in late 2023 and tipped into something bigger across 2024 as social media turned pouring debates and pub challenges into reasons to order a pint. Guinness stopped being just a drink and became a shared experience, something people filmed, compared, and argued about together. By late 2024, Guinness sales were up roughly 13%, even as overall alcohol sales were trending downward. Supply struggled to keep up, and shortages followed in some regions. Other brewers also felt the ripple effects almost immediately. Murphy's Irish Stout saw demand surge, and thousands of longtime drinkers gained new company at the bar. All it took was a few viral videos and a generation willing to give an old pint a fresh look. 10. Camel milk could help people with asthma. Asthma affects more than 300 million people worldwide, and much of the condition comes down to inflammation and overactive immune responses in the airways. Now, I know camel milk sounds like something you'd expect to see promoted on a late-night wellness blog, not in a research paper. Still, scientists have been taking a closer look. In one study, researchers from Al-Farabi Kazakh National University and the Hestie Asfendirov Kazakh National Medical University in Kazakhstan, working with a collaborator at the University of Sydney, gave camel milk to mice before exposing them to dust mite allergens, a common asthma trigger. And surprisingly, Compared to the untreated mice, the animals that received the milk showed milder symptoms and lower levels of airway inflammation. Their immune systems reacted less aggressively, suggesting a calming effect on allergic responses. Camel milk has been used medicinally in some cultures for years. Science, however, has only reached the animal stage so far. 9. Guinness rejected a world record because people ate it too soon. In 2008, Guinness World Record event organizers in northern Tehran brought together around 1,000 cooks to build a single sandwich longer than anything the world had seen before. The finished product was intended to stretch nearly a mile and contained more than 2,200 pounds of ostrich meat. Cameras rolled, crowds gathered, and Italy's existing record was firmly in their sights. The problem came at the finish line. The crowd surged forward before the officials had a chance to properly measure the sandwich's length and began eating it. With the evidence disappearing bite by bite, Guinness had no way to confirm the record and had to reject the claim. 8. A court stopped a mother from naming her baby Cyanide. Yep. If you've ever wondered where the human race is headed, well, let me just say the courts in the UK had to stop a mother from naming her twins Preacher and Cyanide. When asked to explain her choice, the mother said she liked how the word cyanide sounded, and that it played its part in stopping Hitler. Judges ruled naming a child after a notorious poison would likely cause harm as the child grew up. Although the court said the name Preacher was not offensive on its own, judges ruled that allowing one twin to keep a neutral name while the other carried a harmful one would further risk emotional damage. So both names were blocked. The responsibility for choosing new names was eventually handed to the children's older siblings instead. No word on what their names are. 7. A bandage can train you to stop picking your nose. In 1995, one survey found that 91% of people admitted to picking noses. Hopefully their own. 75% said they believed everyone else did. So it's safe to say a lot of people stick a finger up their nose every now and again, and for some of them, that becomes a compulsion. For people struggling to quit, the problem isn't a lack of self-control, it's the habit that happens without noticing, which makes it frustratingly hard to stop. Instead of fighting that instinct head-on, some health writers suggest working around it. The idea is to use a physical reminder that snaps you out of the motion. Something as basic as a bandage wrapped around your usual finger can do the job. Every time your hand starts heading north, the bandage gets your attention, and that pause breaks the loop before it completes itself. 6. Papua New Guinea celebrates Easter a bit differently. Instead of the usual eggs, chocolate, and bunnies, some of Papua New Guinea's churches decorate tobacco trees. In many rural communities, tobacco has traditionally been used as a trade item or shared as a social gift, especially in places where cash has never been reliable. The trees are placed inside or outside churches and covered with tobacco sticks and packets of cigarettes. They stay in place throughout the Easter service and form part of the celebration. Once the service ends, the decorations are taken down and shared among the congregation. People then head home, often smoking as they go, and gather for a simple meal that usually consists of leftovers from Good Friday. 5. A man was left in a well for days after being mistaken for a ghost. In November 2024, a 22-year-old man named Liu Qianyi was walking near the Thailand-Myanmar border when he fell into an old well. The fall left him badly injured, and since he was completely trapped, he did the only thing he could and started screaming for help. A lot of people heard his cries, but nobody came to his rescue because people believed the crying was coming from a ghost and started avoiding the area out of fear. So, Chuan-Yi remained stuck until someone eventually called the police after 3 days. Nobody ever really explained why he was walking along the border in the first place. 4. Thieves raided Keanu Reeves' home. That's it. That's the entry. I'm kidding. But you have to ask why anyone would want to break into Keanu Reeves' home anyway. I mean, bad guy roles aside, he's well known to be one of the nicest guys in Hollywood. But be that as it may, in December 2023, several masked men broke into Keanu Reeves' Los Angeles home while he wasn't there. They escaped before police arrived, taking a gun and a few things that weren't immediately accounted for. A year later, one of those missing items, a rare Rolex, turned up in Santiago, Chile. The watch was eventually returned to Reeves after an FBI-coordinated handover between Chilean and U.S. authorities. 3. We've got art on Mars. While Keanu's watch took an unexpected trip to Chile, Damien Hirst's work ended up on Mars. When the Beagle 2 probe set off for Mars in 2003, it carried one of his dot pattern designs to calibrate its instruments. The lander vanished during descent, and everyone chalked it up as another expensive space failure. Then, in 2015, NASA's Mars orbiter spotted it sitting neatly on the surface. Panels jammed, but otherwise fine. Hirst's dots were still attached and recognizable, making it the first piece of contemporary art on Mars. 2. A drunk driver didn't realize his car was missing a tire. In 2019, South Yorkshire police stopped a silver Peugeot in Rotherham after officers noticed something was very wrong with it. One of its front tires was completely gone. The driver had been grinding metal on the pavement and somehow kept going. When police pulled him over, it became clear he had no idea anything was missing. Their evening was only about to get more interesting. They also discovered that he was intoxicated, didn't have a valid license nor insurance, and had already failed to appear in court 2 other times. The incident wasn't even an isolated case. UK police reported a similar stop earlier that same year involving another intoxicated driver who continued driving after losing a tire, apparently without realizing it either. 1. A woman survived a bear attack thanks to a hair clip. On the evening of June 30th, 2024, Vanessa Chaput was jogging near Pine Lake Campground in Yukon with her German Shepherd when she rounded the corner and ran straight into 3 grizzly bears. She tried to retreat while keeping hold of her dog, but her dog Luna broke away and chased 2 of the bears off. That left Chaput facing a large male on her own. The bear rushed her, knocking her down, and bit her head before suddenly pulling back. Chaput later said she believes the bite hit the plastic hair clip she was wearing, which cracked apart in the bear's mouth. She used that moment to get away and took cover behind a tree. When the bear charged again, Luna's barking from a distance distracted it long enough for Chaput to reach the highway. She was rescued and spent 10 days in the hospital with broken bones and nerve damage, but was one of the few people in the world lucky enough to survive a full grizzly attack. Amazingly, the thing that stopped this one was a piece of cheap plastic. And yes, I looked it up, Luna survived. Don't worry. And that's it for today. My brain needs a break. If I've convinced you, hit that like and subscribe button before YouTube decides this was a fluke. And if facts that feel fake are your thing, our related video, 25 mind-blowing facts that are stranger than fiction, is an easy next stop. It starts with the truth about oranges and only gets better from there. That video should be popping up right about here any second now. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I'll catch you again next time. See ya.